Hello, I'm Alec Nielsen. I am a student at Pittsburgh Organ Academy, and I study with Anne Lebonsky over at Duquesne. I will be performing for you Bach's Prelude in G major, BWV 550. Bach wrote this piece around 1710 while he was in his early years with the Duke of Weimar. The piece features a 3-notes motif that you'll hear throughout the piece. Enjoy the prelude.
Also, for the program, if anyone is speaking, we do need to speak into the microphone because the live stream will pick it up that way. If you don't speak in the mic, we can't hear it. Okay?
Thanks, Alex. You know, it's always great to hear young talents coming up through the ranks. We know you have a great teacher, and you have colleagues here who always will be willing to support you. So thanks again for playing for us. And thanks to Cindy Hawk and the parishioners here at First Lutheran for their continued hospitality. We've had so many wonderful meetings here, and it's great to be back again. Well, it's good to see you all here today. We have an exciting program, and I think we should begin with prayer, and our chaplain, Ann Miller-Smith, will lead us today.
When in our music, God is glorified, and adoration leaves no room for pride, it is as though the whole creation cried, Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. How often making music we have found a new dimension in the world of sound, as worship moved us to a more profound Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. So has the church in liturgy and song, in faith and love, through centuries of wrong, borne witness to the truth in every tongue. Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. And did not Jesus sing a psalm that night when utmost evil strove against the light? Then let us sing for whom he won the fight. Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. Let every instrument be tuned for praise. Let all rejoice who have a voice to raise. And may God give us faith to sing always. Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia.
The dog's name is Tigger, by the way. While we were praying, did you see what the dog was doing? Apparently it likes the pedal board. Thank you, Ann. Thank you so much for that. Do we have any guests this evening? Any guests here? Pam?
Hi, my name is Pam Shaw. This is my husband, Tom Ronsonick. He's interested in composing, so he's eager to hear about the program tonight.
Yeah, he's a very, very excellent composer, and he was a former tamburitzin, right, Pam? Yeah, Pam sings in our cathedral choir. Pam just played a recital yesterday. Very fine recital. Any new business this evening? Reports, committee reports? John, is John Tillian here?
Good evening, everyone. This is just a reminder that this Sunday at 3 o'clock, Alan Morrison will be playing at East Liberty Presbyterian Church as part of the Organ Artist series. And prior to that at 1:30, we'll be doing a barbecue, a brunch. Was to take place in the Cathedral Garth, the courtyard, but looking at the weather, it might have to be moved inside. But if you haven't signed up, still plenty of seats left. You can either see me tonight or visit the website organseries.com. And then right on the heels of that, on May 12th, Amanda Mole will be in town playing for us. She'll be at Westminster Presbyterian Church, and this will be a fun program. She's going to use both the Taylor and Booty in their chapel and the Austin in the church. So we'll do one half of the program in each location. And of course, there'll be a dinner prior to that program as well. So please join us.
Thank you, John. Any other new business? Frank.
On behalf of the nominating committee, I want to let you know that we met on March 28th, came up with a ballot, submitted it to the executive committee for approval, so it's in their hands. So once the executive committee approves it, then the election process begins. So I'll just let you know that it was done.
Short and sweet, I like that. Anybody else? Okay, Christine?
Let's talk about short. So, good evening, and we also welcome our live stream audience, those who are participating and watching this live streaming of Carson Cooman. Before I introduce our guest this evening, I just want to politely remind our program committee, the new program committee, that we are gathering after tonight's meeting as close to 9:30 as possible, if not sooner. And we're going to progress over to the Omni to talk about next year's program and get our budget and ideas in order. If you're not on the program committee but you would like to join us, feel free. More the merrier. But anyhow, so before I introduce Carson Cooman, the program committee members, would you please stand, because those of you who may have some ideas or would like to, make some suggestions for the future program year, as we're in the process of doing this now. If we have the program committee members stand, then you will know who to approach. So program committee for 22-2025, there you are, and there you have it. So thank you for your willingness to serve, and we look forward to our chat very soon after tonight's meeting. Great. Well, again, to everybody, welcome to our program this evening. We are thrilled to host Carson Cooman. I'm just curious, how many of us have ever performed works by him, whether choral, instrumental? Raise your hands. I know. Look at this, Carson. Wow. We're so excited and delighted that you are here. You are here, chapter members and colleagues, to hear about accessible contemporary repertoire by composers from near and far. And it's such a wonderful topic. And I don't think we could have found anybody more informed and resourceful than Carson to share his journey as an advocate and active recitalist for contemporary music. I'm sure by now you've all read in your pipelines and the email blasts about Carson Cooman. So without further ado, would you join me in welcoming him?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to move this a little bit closer so that I don't have to keep getting on and off the bench between each one. So thank you. There were two different handouts. The one that's actually relevant is the one that says Pittsburgh Chapter AGO on the top, has a list of many composers. The other one is just a copy of a piece of mine, for which I had an enormous stack at home, and you're welcome to have it, something easy that I wrote for the baptism of my nephew last year. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to share some repertoire and some composers that fall into sort of the category of accessible repertoire for the sake of sort of putting some parameters on it. Everything that's listed here is sort of between easy and lower medium. Nothing needs more than 2 manuals. Everything is suitable for church. Some of it could be played in recitals as well. So we could do another whole workshop on recital repertoire, and we could do 20 more versions of just this workshop with different names on this page. So I explicitly tried to choose things that are not familiar, are unlikely to be familiar to you here. So this is focusing mostly on pieces that are either self-published by their composers or published by European publishers or published online. So there's nothing here from the mainstream American publishers, not because they don't continue to release good things, and I work for one of them as well. But that is material you are likely much more familiar with. You get the catalogs in the mail, and if not, you shouldn't. When I've done these in different places, I try and say, so there's one name not on here that should be when I do it in other places, but I intentionally left off, which is Benjamin Cornelius Bates, who I see over there, who is a wonderful composer of festival music. But I'm assuming you're already, of course, well familiar with Ben's music, and if not, you should be. So that's why he's not on the Pittsburgh version, but he was on the Massachusetts version a few weeks ago. So hopefully these are names that are mostly unfamiliar. There's about 35 or so people on here. I'm going to play excerpts of maybe 12 to 15 of these pieces. There's simply not time to go through the rest. I'll tell you a little bit about the composer, maybe a little bit about the piece, play you some, or a couple of cases, the whole piece if it's very short. And then at the end, we can have questions or discussion on any topic any topic that relates to new music, at least. That's really all I'm qualified to speak about. So hopefully you'll find some things in here that may be appealing to you, or things that you'll look forward to further exploring, or composers whose work might be of interest to you. Okay, try and move this into quasi-singing position and okay. So we'll go in order on the sheet, just skipping people. As you see, I've broken this out into categories based on their availability. This first section is music that's downloadable online for cost. The next section is things that are available online for free. And then the second and the last page is mostly music that's published by publishers in Europe who are not widely distributed in the US. So the first piece will be the first one on the list. Karen Beaumont is a composer from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, an organist. She's published a number of pieces. I find her pieces very useful. They have sort of intriguing elements that they're accessible to hear, but they're intriguing in some of the unexpected things that happen in them. They're extremely flexible in terms of usually no registration is prescribed, and the distribution of manuals and sometimes even pedals is left up in the air. So there's a lot of flexibility of making it sound good on any organ. So this will be the first one that's there, this one called Life Springs Evergreen. that was the complete piece, but I'm not going to play complete pieces for almost any of the others because we won't have time. And please don't feel you need to applaud, or we'll never get through it all. But thank you. Next, Felix Breuer, a composer in Germany whose music is becoming quite well known over there within the last, really within the 10 years or so that I've known him. He has a lot of different things, both chorale-based and free music. I listed 2 things there, a collection of 20 consolations, which are really lovely, quiet pieces in a variety of forms, and some have sort of flexible duration possibilities as well, extremely useful for communion or meditative music. And then as just an example of one of his more festive pieces, I'll play just a couple sections of the second piece that's listed there. Who's an American composer from Northeast Ohio. He has a number of pieces. Many of his pieces have a sort of attractive sort of melancholy to them, a nice sort of emotional mood that works very well the way he does it. This is a little bit of his canzona. A few more down, Natalia Jespersen is a composer of Russian birth, though has lived most of her adult life in Denmark, has written a fair amount of music. I particularly recommend this volume called Festive Organ Collection. I'll play little bits of 2 pieces from there. It's a mix of a variety of useful pieces. Some are sort of festive, processional kinds of things. I'm going to play one now called Trumpet Voluntary, which is actually one of the quieter pieces, despite the usual expectations for that title. And then after that, I'll play a little of some of the lighter pieces that are also in the book. A little bit of a piece that's called Organ Vacation and Ice Cream. a couple pieces in there that are a bit lighter like that as well. Next, Phil Leyenbauer is a retired band director from Ohio, who's also been active as a church musician most of his life and lives now in Florida. He's written a significant amount of organ pieces of various sorts that have a nice, nice sort of particularly American flair and sound to them. This is a little bit of Festive Finale. Tate Pumphrey is a composer from Canada. This is a little bit of a piece called Sursum Corda, which is a sort of quiet meditation. He also has a number of very exciting, big festive pieces as well, some of which are quite difficult, but not all. Turning over to the second page, James Michael Stevens is a composer, pianist in Nashville, teaches at Welch College. He's written a lot of piano music and quite a lot of organ music in the last few years, both sacred pieces and some works in lighter styles as well. This is a bit of the first one listed there, Storm Quiet, which is sort of typical of his adagio type pieces. moving down the list, I won't play anything by Gary Bachland, but he's another composer who has written just an enormous amount of organ music, all of which is available freely on his website. I think at least 400 or 500 pieces. There's a whole variety of things. He particularly likes the contrapuntal forms. There's a lot of sort of fugues and fugettas in several sets of 24 in different keys and with different kinds of pairings. 24 Cantilenas is a nice collection of quiet pieces, as the title might suggest. Paean is a good example of one of the sort of more festive pieces. Then there's also several organ symphonies and suites and big concert music as well. It's sort of the whole range. So that is, I won't play anything, but it's a useful person to note. Jumping down to Carlotta Ferrari from Italy, who is one of my sort of closest musical collaborators. I've been very involved with the development of her organ catalog over the last 10 years, which is now about 600 or 700 pieces of organ music. I just listed 4 almost at random there. They're all on IMSLP, and I have recorded probably nearly all of them, all but maybe 10 or so. And there's just a wonderful variety in every respect. I'll play a little bit of the third one down there, the Variazione, which is a particularly Italian example, sort of based on a traditional sort of tarantella melody. Not all the pieces are as overtly Italian, but this one certainly is. It really does a disservice to the breadth of her output to play only one piece, but you'll have to explore that on your own, and it doesn't cost you anything. Continuing down, won't play anything by Marcus Hollinghaus or Hans Martin Lindberg, though both are German composers who have all their pieces online. There's a lot of useful material. Hollinghaus, in particular, has often served churches with very, very small organs, and so he's written a lot of pieces that are useful even with only one manual and pedal, but are largely in a sort of romantic idiom, so they expand very well to larger organs too, while letting you sort of register exactly with whatever the instrument offers to you. Hans Martin Lindberg is a jazz pianist primarily, and an organist, and his pieces run a real gamut of styles, from fairly traditional sacred music to things that have much more influence from minimalism and ambient music and a bit of jazz. There's a really wide variety there, from some pretty big, difficult concert pieces to some smallest things. I've listed those pieces, Gebet, which means prayer, 5. Those 5 pieces are, they're 5 good examples of this style, and they're all not too difficult and fairly usable in church. Jan Noordijk is a Dutch composer who lives in Belgium and is a funeral director by day and organist by weekend. His work in dealing with bereavement and such has led to a particularly large number of meditative pieces at which he does particularly well. There are some big, loud things too, but I particularly enjoy his meditative pieces, and everything of his is on his website as well. I'll play a bit of the first piece in the next category. Anthony St. Pierre is a Canadian composer and wind player. He began as a Baroque oboist, was a member of the Toronto group Tafelmusik, which you may have heard of if you follow early music. And in recent years has focused more on recorder playing, and a lot of his pieces for other instruments come out of a tradition of sort of careful control of small numbers of voices and quiet sonorities and what comes to that. So this is a bit of the first piece that's there, Solus. Next, the bottom of that page, Dietrich Wirtzeiko is a German Lutheran minister who also pursues avocational activities in organ playing and composition. He's written a number of different sorts of pieces. This is the Entrada, that's the first one that's listed there. Turning over to the next page, moving down to Wilhelm Donnelling, who is a composer from Sweden. This is a little bit of the first part of the first piece there, Folk Dance, which has a distinctly Swedish character. Next, Beate Leibe is a German composer from Berlin. Sort of a pleasant story. She showed a lot of musical aptitude as a child, which was beaten out of her by her parents and sort of forced to put music aside. She worked an office job for her life, and later in life decided to come back to music and went and earned a degree and qualified in the German system to be able to be a church musician, and did that for a few years before a final retirement, and has also written probably 10 or so volumes of organ music and choral music. I recommend a couple books there. This is from that first one there, Spiel mich, means play me. This is a meditation called Herzschlag, heartbeat. Many of her pieces are inspired specifically by particular scriptures. This is from Matthew 22, 37, 38. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind. And you hear the sort of heartbeat pattern in the outer sections. In the middle, there's a quotation from Herzlich lieb, Lord, thee I love with all my heart, the German chorale. And then the music comes back at the end. I'll play the whole thing because it's not long and it's a nice example. Hess, German composer. He was the head of the pop music division of one of the regional German radio stations for a number of decades. Also composed in a pretty wide variety of genres. This is a particularly nice book, Form and Farben, Shapes and Colors, and a variety of both quiet and loud pieces. This is one of the more extroverted short preludes that's in there. And then moving a few more down, Andreas Wilscher. Andreas is another close musical collaborator of mine. He's certainly the most prolific composer of organ music in Germany since about 1950. Just truly enormous output, and well known in Germany, though less so here. I suggest the first volume of organ works that Butzverlage put out, because that volume's a particularly good start. It's fairly sizable, and there's a little bit of sort of every sort of thing he does in there. So that's a very good sort of starting point. And then there are a number of volumes. There are also many, many hundreds of unpublished pieces as well. But the 13 or 14 volumes that they put out so far are a good example. I'll just play a little bit of the triptych that closes that first volume. And then for our last piece of this section, Marcus Ziegler, just to show that I don't go around the country giving exactly the same workshop. This is a book that came in the mail last week and was felt worthy of inclusion. Another German composer. This book was his pandemic project, very useful. It's 40 rondo preludes. They're varying characters, but they're all in rondo form. And often the intervening episodes don't involve pedal, so they can pretty much all be played on a single registration. So it's sort of you can set it up with basically no time at all. There are various characters. I'll play a little of one of the quieter ones, and then one of the more toccata-like ones, just to show you the variety. So it's quite a useful book. I was surprised, usually with a book of 40 pieces, I was surprised at probably at least 35 of them I liked, so that's pretty good odds. I've known him for a number of years, but this book is new. So that's a letter Z, and that's probably plenty for you for the moment. So then I guess in the time left, I'm happy to take questions or react to whatever subjects you want me to react to. Or if you have any more specific questions about the things on here. As I said, this is just, I could do another one with completely different names on it. So these are chosen they're things I like and I think are useful, but it's certainly not meant in any respect to be exhaustive.
Of the list that you provided here, if there were only 3 composers.
I'm not going to answer that. That's very unfair. It's very unfair for me to do that to people, to these people. I mean, even making a list like this is torturous. So.
Of course, but life isn't fair.
It is. I'm not going to publicly only name 3 people from this list. Oh, sure. I will let that one go.
Carson, can you tell us a little bit about the Lorenz catalog for music?
Sure. I am, yeah. So you asked about the Lorenz organ catalog. Yeah, since 2015, I've been the editor for the organ publications for Lorenz and Sacred Music Press, which involves a really wide variety of music. My philosophy is sort of the same in that as it is in everything else, is to have a pretty large breadth of difficulty from things that are useful to beginners up to sort of advanced recital repertoire, covering a variety of composers. It's a company with a long history, long predates my existence, certainly. So part of that has been keeping some of the legacy of what the company has had, but also sort of taking it in broader directions that reflect my own interests with composers today.
Are you also choral editor?
Pre-pandemic, I did edit a sort of upper-level choral series, but that was a pandemic casualty, like most serious choral music at many publishers, unfortunately. The financials of it are tough to begin with in the current world, and the pandemic was a real existential sort of moment for publishers in general. No company survived it unscathed, certainly. And I'm surprised more didn't go under that did. Certainly a few went under, mostly in the sort of larger evangelical sphere where the numbers, the sort of make or break is so much higher. But not a single firm got through it without pretty significant reorganization and cuts just to exist. Because it was a case where basically industry-wide the sales of choral music went to 0 overnight, basically, in May, June 2020. Truly nothing, just off the cliff. So, keyboard music and other things still had some interest, but you cannot sustain a company on that alone, not in this current world.
Do you have a sense overall about sales of this kind of music, or are these people selling one book a month, or one book a week, or one book a day? Do you have any idea?
So the question is about sales quantity. Do you mean in terms of like the people on this list? I mean, I think it depends. I mean, the self-published material, I think there's a lot of variety there. I think the people that are most active in promoting their own things sell more. The things that are published with publishers tend to have a bit higher sales value because the publisher is doing some degree of sending things to music dealers and or catalog mailings and such. But sort of, organ music is not a big sales market in the present world. It's simply not, and it never will be again. The era of many thousand copies print runs of organ pieces is long in the rearview mirror, certainly. So for publishers, it's a matter of sort of figuring out what the sustainable way is to do it, that it can still be commercially viable.
And that leads to the next question. Do you see it moving rapidly toward digital?
Digital is increasing, but not as fast as I think some people think it is. And at least as yet, it's not showing a real drop in paper volume relative to it. I'm sure that will continue to go over the time. But it's, it's sort of highly variable. The people that have adapted fully digital are very, very committed to that, to adapting fully digital. But I think there's a lot of people that exist in a sort of hybrid state, if at all. With particularly people that have been playing a long time, have a lot of music in print already, and maybe are getting some. There's also there's a difference as well, not so much from a publisher perspective, but there's a difference between people who perform from digital devices or those who purchase it digitally and then print it out. So I mean, it's clearly a significant. I mean, it's clearly a thing. It's clearly a thing, and it's on the upswing. But it's not. I think it's certainly from what I've seen, it's not as fast an upswing as some people think it is. But no question, being able to get things quickly is a big game changer. Wherever your opinion is about playing from digital copies, the availability instantly, and this has come up particularly in the stuff I deal with a lot of the Europeans and stuff. The ability to get digital copies can make things both cheaper and more easily accessible as postage and customs and everything has really gone up significantly. And not to mention the wait time. You order a bunch of books from Poland or something and you could be waiting several months at least. Yes?
Isn't one of the issues with digital, though, the fact that you're asking an organist to now learn about, what device should I use, what software package should I use, and what are the trade-offs between this, that, and the other? Maybe like if somebody like Lorenz decided that they wanted to penetrate the digital market, and they came up with some pre-configured things with, like feature benefit that would help people, guide people.
Well, I think it's a pretty personal choice as to how. I mean, it's not necessarily the publisher's. I mean, unless the publisher wants to start that as a separate area, it's not necessarily their business to be selling devices or things. I mean, it could be, but.
I'm just thinking to drive the digital market.
Right. It depends. There's a lot of us that are still very committed to print in a certain way, despite the values that digital has. And I don't, it's not disappearing fast enough that it's time to write it off yet. All right.
Just in general, the number of let's say, women composers is interesting. My guess is women are just not writing as many works for organ. Do you find that to be this representative of recent publications? Is it a trend? I'm just curious.
In what direction? I think in general, demographically, there have been fewer. There have been fewer women composers, yeah. But there are more now than there were before, and continuing to come forward, certainly. An opinion about it? In what sense? Well, I think just historically, for a long time, it wasn't possible to have that. There were too many barriers put on career success. Yeah. Well, I think more women are feeling that it's an option to be a composer. They're sort of seeing the models of composers and they're studying and doing that degree. Yeah. And increasing numbers who are studying it formally in conservatory and things and the like. So I would imagine it will continue to increase as it has. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you have a sense, say for example in Lorenz, is more music sold that's hymn-based or free?
In America, definitely more hymn-based music.
Pardon me?
in America, definitely more hymn-based music is sold than free music. My own interests skew very heavily the other direction, just my personal interests. Lorenz publishes plenty of hymn-based music. That's the way the market. That's why like this leans that. That's just I've always been much more interested in original music than I have been in hymn-based music of any period. But certainly in the U.S., I mean, it's not even close. The hymn-based music sells to a very different degree. And some of the publishers have basically stopped publishing original pieces at all for that reason, because they just can't sell enough of them. That's not as true in Europe, which is one reason that personally I've been much more interested in a lot of what gets released over there. There's still a huge market in Germany for free original pieces as well, in a way that unfortunately there no longer is in this country.
Well, I'm just thinking of 17th, 18th century Germany, where the organ was very popular. Villages competed with neighboring towns and villages to have the best organ, and a lot of that repertoire was based on hymns.
Oh yeah, I mean, and there still is. I mean, there's still plenty of both kinds of music. I'm just saying in Germany you can still sell books of original pieces to levels that you cannot in this country. Yes?
Do you have a sense, composers in this list per se, how many of these are full-time organists with a church position or a teaching position or something versus musicians at a more general level versus people who have a completely different vocation who just do this on the side?
On this list, I would say almost everyone on here is a full-time musician of some sort. Whether that's, in some cases, they're organists or church musicians or teachers. In a few cases, they're not organists themselves, but they write for organ. Yeah. I think that's basically true here of just this particular sampling. But certainly there certainly are people who have chosen to make their primary sort of paid career something else. And there are plenty of good arguments for why that could be a good choice to do for any number of reasons. Oh, Pittsburgh roots? Well, it was very limited. About 20 years ago, I was here for a couple of years for graduate school at Carnegie Mellon in composition. Yeah. And I was in Boston before then and have been in Boston since, so.
Do you have a church job?
Pardon?
Do you have a church job?
I work for Memorial Church, Harvard University as composer in residence. There are 3 of us on the music staff that split the duties as needed. No, it's not. It's non-denominational Protestant, yeah. Yeah, the school is not denominationally affiliated, obviously, so. The chapel is not a specific. The ministers have varied. The current minister is Episcopalian, but the predecessors last 2 were American Baptists. There was Disciples of Christ in there and some other things. It's been a mix, yeah.
So you do it the pocket yard.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not from Boston originally. I'm from Rochester, New York originally. So, but yes, I've now spent much of my life in Boston. All right, thank you.
Well, before we excuse you, I just wanted to remind you all that our final meeting of the program year is on Monday, May 22nd at St. Paul's Episcopal Church. We truly hope you will all come out and support your colleagues in playing, and we plan to also have a reception gathering after the event to celebrate Doug Starr's retirement. And if anybody else has retired since then, we'll raise our glasses to you as well. And along those lines, that event, which as usual begins at 7:30, I was just thinking, you know, we have ample performers, but if anybody would like to also play music in memory of anybody, a chapter member that has passed away, that has meaning for you, I certainly think that is most appropriate in the spirit of the members' recital program. So if you have any works that, again, have meaning for you to be played in memory of a chapter member that has passed away, it doesn't have to be recent, I think that would be most appropriate. Let us know. We hope to print the program by May 15th, and if you could send your information and interest as soon as possible, that would be greatly appreciated. Are there any other announcements aside from that? Yeah. Well, we hope to be in touch with you all soon with the ballot information, as Frank said, and we hope that you will come out for the final program event on Monday, May 22nd. So I guess I do have one other item with respect to the program committee that's going to gather here very soon. If we were to send you a survey as a chapter, how many of you would be willing to answer just a few questions as we gather information about what your interests and needs are as chapter members? The programs need to, of course, represent and meet the needs of many chapter members. Would you, if you were sent a survey, would you reply? Would you find that helpful? We want to hear from you. It's not just from a few, but our program, everybody should see their needs represented in some appropriate ways. Great, thank you, because that's one of our agenda items for tonight. Thank you so much. Cynthia, is she here? Cynthia, thank you for hosting us. And I think that paragraph on parking was the most challenging writing assignment I've ever had in my lifetime. I'd like to thank everybody who helped edit it. Thank you so much. Yes, but that's very helpful. And is there anything that we need to know? Make sure you have your stickers on your parking tickets if you parked in the U.S. Steel garage. If you don't have a sticker, please see Cynthia. And again, would you join me in thanking Carson Cooman for being our presenter? And I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have as you depart. Safe travels, everybody. Hope to see you next month.